Explore Egypt. Learn English through story. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine that you are standing in the middle of a vast desert. The sun is slowly rising above the horizon. The air is calm. The sky is painted with shades of gold and orange. In front of you stands one of the most mysterious structures ever built by human hands. The Great Pyramid. Silent, massive, timeless. For more than 4,000 years, it has watched civilizations rise and fall. Empires have disappeared. Kings have been forgotten. But the pyramid remains. Today we are not simply visiting Egypt. We are traveling through time, through ancient kingdoms, through crowded markets, through deserts, rivers, temples, and cities. We will discover the stories behind one of the most fascinating countries on earth. A country where every stone seems to hold a secret. A country where history is not hidden inside museums. It is everywhere, in the streets, in the buildings, in the language, in the people. Welcome to Egypt. Our journey begins before the pyramids, before the pharaohs, before history itself. Thousands of years ago, this land looked very different. The mighty Nile River flowed through a landscape surrounded by endless desert. Along its banks, small groups of people settled and built simple communities. Life was not easy. Every day was a struggle for survival. People depended on the river for everything: water, food, transportation, life itself. Then something extraordinary happened. Year after year, the Nile flooded the land. When the water retreated, it left behind rich soil. This fertile ground allowed people to grow crops. More food meant larger communities. Larger communities became villages. Villages became cities. And cities eventually became one of the greatest civilizations in human history. Ancient Egypt. A civilization so advanced that even today, thousands of years later, it continues to amaze scientists, historians, and travelers. Imagine waking up in ancient Egypt. The first rays of sunlight illuminate the Nile. Farmers walk toward their fields. Merchants prepare their goods. Children run through dusty streets. Priests enter massive temples. And somewhere, inside a magnificent palace, a pharaoh begins another day of ruling one of the most powerful kingdoms on earth. The pharaoh was more than a king. He was believed to be chosen by the gods. His words carried immense power. His decisions shaped the lives of millions. Under his rule, enormous monuments were built. Temples rose from the desert. Statues reached toward the sky. And eventually, the pyramids appeared. The pyramids are among the most famous structures ever created. Millions of people visit them every year. Yet, the same question remains. How? How did ancient people build something so extraordinary without modern technology? Imagine standing at the construction site more than 4,000 years ago. Thousands of workers move enormous stone blocks. Engineers carefully measure every angle. Architects oversee the project. The sound of tools echoes across the desert, day after day, month after month, year after year. A monument slowly takes shape. A monument that would survive for thousands of years. A monument that would become one of the wonders of the world. And this was only the beginning of Egypt's story. Chapter 2. The Land of the Nile. To understand Egypt, you must first understand one thing: the Nile. Because without the Nile, Egypt would not exist as we know it today. For thousands of years, this river has been the heartbeat of the country. Flowing more than 6,000 kilometers across Africa, the Nile is one of the longest rivers on earth. But to Egyptians, it is much more than a river. It is life. Imagine flying above Egypt. Below you, you see endless deserts stretching in every direction. Golden sand, rocky mountains, dry landscapes. Then suddenly, a green ribbon appears. a narrow strip of life cutting through the desert. That ribbon is the Nile. From high above, Egypt almost looks like two different worlds. One world is dry and silent. The other is alive with farms, cities, villages, and millions of people. Almost all of Egypt's population lives close to the Nile. For thousands of years, people have built their homes along its banks, generation after generation, century after century. The river has always provided what people needed most: water, food, transportation, opportunity. Imagine standing beside the Nile 4,000 years ago. There are no highways, no airplanes, no trains. The river is the main road. Boats travel up and down carrying food, stone, animals, and people. Merchants transport goods between cities. Farmers move crops to markets. Travelers explore distant regions. Everything depends on the river. The Nile connects the entire country. It brings people together, and it creates prosperity. Every year, the river flooded the surrounding land. At first, this might sound dangerous, but for ancient Egyptians, these floods were a blessing. When the water retreated, it left behind fertile black soil. This soil was perfect for farming. Wheat, barley, vegetables, fruit. The harvest fed millions of people. And because food was plentiful, society became stronger. Cities grew larger. Trade expanded. Knowledge increased. Civilization flourished. The Nile made all of this possible. Ancient Egyptians respected the river deeply. Some even considered it sacred. They believed powerful gods controlled its waters. They prayed for successful floods. They celebrated the river's gifts. They understood something very important. Without the Nile, survival would be impossible. Today, the Nile remains just as important. Modern cities line its banks. Millions of people still depend on its water every day. The river continues to support agriculture, industry, and transportation. But the experience of the Nile is not only practical, it is also beautiful. Imagine yourself standing on a boat at sunset. The sky glows with shades of orange and gold. Palm trees sway gently in the breeze. The water reflects the colors of the evening sky. Birds fly overhead. Everything feels calm, peaceful, timeless. Moments like these explain why so many travelers fall in love with Egypt. The Nile has a special ability to slow time, to make people stop, to observe, to appreciate. As the boat continues its journey, villages appear along the riverbanks. Children play near the water. Fishermen prepare their nets. Farmers work in green fields. Life moves at its own rhythm, a rhythm that has existed for thousands of years. Some things change, others remain surprisingly familiar. This connection between past and present is one of the most fascinating aspects of Egypt. The modern world exists everywhere: smartphones, cars, internet, skyscrapers. Yet somehow, ancient traditions continue to survive. And nowhere is this more visible than along the Nile. If you travel far enough, you reach cities like Luxor and Aswan. Places where history feels alive. Places where ancient temples still stand beside the river. Massive columns rise toward the sky. Ancient carvings cover stone walls. Stories from thousands of years ago remain visible for anyone willing to look. Imagine approaching one of these temples by boat. The structure slowly appears on the horizon, growing larger with every passing minute. At first, it seems impossible. How could something built thousands of years ago still exist? How could human beings create structures so impressive without modern technology? Questions like these follow travelers throughout Egypt, and often they leave with more questions than answers. Perhaps that is part of Egypt's magic. It never reveals all of its secrets. There is always another mystery waiting to be discovered, another story waiting to be told, another chapter waiting to be explored. As night falls over the Nile, the atmosphere changes again. The river becomes dark and quiet. Lights from nearby towns shimmer across the water. The air grows cooler. The stars begin to appear. And for a moment, it becomes easy to imagine ancient Egypt. You can almost picture the boats of long-forgotten kings moving silently through the darkness. You can almost hear the voices of travelers from another age. You can almost feel history surrounding you. The Nile is more than a river. It is a witness to thousands of years of human history. It has seen kingdoms rise, empires fall, generations come and go, yet it continues to flow, steady, powerful, eternal. And as our journey continues, we leave the river behind for a moment and travel toward one of the greatest mysteries ever created by human hands, the Great Pyramids of Giza. Structures so incredible that even today, they continue to challenge our understanding of what ancient people were capable of achieving. Chapter 3: The Great Pyramids, Humanity's Greatest Mystery. As our boat leaves the Nile behind, we travel toward a place that millions of people dream of seeing at least once in their lives. A place that has inspired explorers, scientists, historians, and travelers for centuries. The Great Pyramids of Giza. Even if you have seen photographs before, nothing can truly prepare you for the first moment you see them in person. Imagine driving through the busy streets of Cairo. Cars move in every direction. Buildings fill the horizon. The city feels modern and alive. Then suddenly, in the distance, something appears. A shape unlike anything else. Massive, silent, ancient. The pyramids. For a moment, it almost feels unreal. How can something built more than 4,000 years ago still stand so proudly today? As you move closer, their true size becomes clear. Photographs can be misleading. They make the pyramids look impressive. Reality makes them look impossible. The Great Pyramid of Khufu was once the tallest structure on Earth. For nearly 4,000 years, no human-made building surpassed its height. Think about that for a moment. Entire civilizations rose and disappeared, while the pyramid remained the tallest structure ever built by mankind. The achievement is almost impossible to comprehend. Imagine standing at its base. Each stone block weighs several tons. Some are heavier than a large truck. Now imagine moving millions of those blocks without cranes, without engines, without modern machinery. How did they do it? The truth is that nobody knows exactly. There are theories. Many theories. Some experts believe workers used pyramids. Others suggest advanced engineering techniques that we still do not fully understand. Archaeologists continue to study the pyramids today. Every year, new discoveries reveal more details about their construction. Yet, the mystery remains. And perhaps that mystery is part of what makes them so fascinating. Because the pyramids are not simply buildings. They are questions carved into stone. Questions that humanity has been trying to answer for thousands of years. Imagine the construction site during ancient times. Thousands of workers arrive before sunrise. Engineers carefully calculate measurements. Architects inspect every detail. Stonecutters shape enormous blocks. Teams pull heavy loads across the desert. The sound of labor fills the air. Day after day, year after year. An extraordinary vision slowly becomes reality. The project requires organization on a massive scale. Food must be delivered. Tools must be maintained. Workers must be housed. Every detail matters. The pyramids are proof that ancient Egyptians possessed remarkable knowledge and planning abilities, far beyond what many people imagine. And then there is another question. Why were they built? Ancient Egyptians believed strongly in the afterlife. To them, death was not an ending. It was a transition, a journey into another existence. The pyramids were designed to help pharaohs make that journey. Inside, chambers were carefully constructed. Treasures were placed beside the king. Jewelry, furniture, weapons, food, everything believed necessary for life after death. The pyramid became both a tomb and a symbol of eternal life. As the sun moves across the sky, the appearance of the pyramids changes constantly. In the morning, they glow softly beneath the rising sun. At midday, they dominate the desert landscape. At sunset, they turn golden, almost magical. Shadows stretch across the sand. The atmosphere becomes quiet, peaceful, timeless. Many travelers describe this moment as unforgettable, not because of what they see, but because of what they feel. Standing beside the pyramids creates a strange sense of perspective. You suddenly realize how brief a human life is. The pyramid has witnessed thousands of years. It stood here before modern nations existed, before airplanes, before electricity, before the internet. And it may continue standing for thousands of years more. That realization changes the way many people think about history and about themselves. Yet, the pyramids are not alone. Nearby sits another ancient guardian, a monument just as mysterious, just as legendary. The Great Sphinx, a figure that has watched over the desert for thousands of years. A creature with the body of a lion and the face of a human. Who built it? Why was it created? What secrets lie beneath it? No one knows for certain, and that is where our journey continues, toward one of the most mysterious monuments ever created, the Great Sphinx of Giza. Chapter 4. The Great Sphinx, the Silent Guardian. Not far from the pyramids, another giant figure emerges from the desert. At first, it seems almost unreal. A creature with the body of a lion and the face of a man. The Great Sphinx. For thousands of years, it has stared toward the horizon, watching, waiting, silently observing the passage of time. Imagine approaching the Sphinx for the first time. The desert is quiet. The wind moves gently across the sand. And there, standing before you, is one of the most recognizable monuments on Earth. Unlike the pyramids, the Sphinx feels more personal. The pyramids impress you with their size. The Sphinx fascinates you with its mystery. Who created it? Why was it built? What message was it meant to convey? Historians believe the Sphinx was constructed during the reign of Pharaoh Khafra, more than 4,500 years ago. But many questions remain unanswered, and where there are unanswered questions, there are stories, legends, theories. For centuries, travelers have wondered whether hidden chambers lie beneath the Sphinx. Some believe ancient secrets remain buried under the desert. Others think valuable knowledge from lost civilizations may still be waiting to be discovered. Whether these stories are true or not, they continue to capture the imagination of millions. The face of the Sphinx appears calm, confident, almost wise, as if it knows something the rest of us have forgotten. Throughout history, countless people have stood before it. Pharaohs, Roman emperors, Arab travelers, European explorers, modern tourists, different languages, different cultures, different eras. Yet, they all shared the same feeling. Wonder. Imagine the Sphinx at sunrise. The first light touches its face. Shadows slowly retreat. The desert begins to awaken. For a brief moment, it feels as though the monument itself is alive. Watching another day begin, another chapter of history unfold. The Sphinx has witnessed more history than any human being could ever imagine. It watched the construction of nearby pyramids. It saw ancient kingdoms rise and fall. It witnessed invasions, wars, Empires, revolutions, generations passed before its eyes, like waves upon the shore. And still, it remains. Silent, patient, eternal. Perhaps that is why people are drawn to it, because the Sphinx reminds us that some mysteries do not need to be solved. Sometimes the mystery itself is what makes something beautiful. As we leave the Sphinx behind, our journey continues. But now we move away from the monuments of stone toward a city full of life, a city where 20 million people create a completely different kind of wonder every single day. Welcome to Cairo. Chapter 5. Cairo, the city that never sleeps. The moment you enter Cairo, you feel its energy. It is impossible not to. The city moves constantly. Cars fill the streets. People walk in every direction. Voices echo from shops and cafes. The air is filled with movement. Life is everywhere. For many visitors, Cairo feels overwhelming at first. The traffic seems endless. The streets appear chaotic. Everything happens at once. But after spending time here, something changes. You begin to understand the rhythm. The city starts making sense, and suddenly, what once felt chaotic begins to feel alive. Cairo is one of the largest cities in the world. More than 20 million people call it home. Every morning, millions wake up and begin another day. Students head to school. Workers travel to their jobs. Shop owners prepare for customers. Street vendors arrange their goods. The city comes alive long before sunrise. Imagine walking through Cairo early in the morning. Fresh bread is being baked. Coffee shops open their doors. Newspapers arrive at street corners. The smell of breakfast fills the air. The city slowly awakens. By midday, Cairo reaches full speed. The streets become crowded. Markets become busy. Conversations happen everywhere. And yet, within this enormous city, countless stories unfold every day. A student studying for exams, a businessman rushing to a meeting, a family preparing lunch together, a tourist discovering Egypt for the first time. Millions of different lives, millions of different dreams, all sharing the same city. One of Cairo's most fascinating features is its contrast. Ancient and modern exist side by side. You might see a modern skyscraper standing near a mosque that is hundreds of years old. Luxury cars drive past historic buildings. Ancient history and modern life constantly intersect. Nowhere is this contrast more visible than in Islamic Cairo. Walking through its narrow streets feels like stepping into another era. Historic mosques rise above the city. Ancient architecture surrounds you. The call to prayer echoes through the air. For centuries, people have walked these same streets, and despite the passing of time, much of their character remains unchanged. Then there is Khan el-Khalili, one of the most famous markets in the Middle East, a place where history, culture, and commerce meet. The moment you enter, your senses come alive. Colors, sounds, smells, textures. Every direction offers something new. Shops display handmade crafts. Jewelry sparkles beneath warm lights. Spices create rich aromas. Traditional lanterns hang from ceilings. Merchants welcome visitors from around the world. You could spend hours wandering through its narrow pathways. Every corner reveals another surprise, another story, another piece of Egypt. As evening approaches, Cairo transforms once again. The temperature becomes cooler. Families gather together. Restaurants fill with customers. Cafes become lively. The city shows no signs of slowing down. In many places around the world, life becomes quieter after sunset. Not in Cairo. Here, the night often feels as alive as the day. People meet friends. Families go out together. Conversations continue late into the evening. The city never truly sleeps. And perhaps that is what makes Cairo unforgettable. It is not perfect. It is not quiet. It is not simple. But it is alive. And sometimes, that is exactly what makes a city beautiful. Yet beyond Cairo lies another side of Egypt, a side filled with temples, ancient kings, and some of the greatest archaeological treasures ever discovered. Our next destination is Luxor, a city often called the world's greatest open-air museum. Chapter 6, Luxor, the world's greatest open-air museum. Leaving Cairo behind, we travel south along the Nile. The crowded streets slowly disappear. The modern skyline fades into the distance. And a different Egypt begins to emerge. An Egypt where history feels alive. An Egypt where ancient kings still seem to whisper through the stones. Welcome to Luxor. Many historians believe Luxor is the greatest archaeological city on Earth. Some call it the world's largest open-air museum. And when you arrive, it becomes easy to understand why. Thousands of years ago, Luxor was known as Thebes. At its peak, it was one of the most powerful cities in the ancient world. Pharaohs ruled from here. Armies marched from here. Temples rose toward the sky. Wealth flowed through its streets. The city became the center of an empire that stretched far beyond Egypt's borders. Imagine arriving in Thebes 3,000 years ago. The city is alive with activity. Merchants fill the markets. Priests prepare ceremonies. Workers construct magnificent monuments. The Nile carries ships loaded with goods from distant lands. Everywhere you look, there is evidence of power and prosperity. Today, much of that ancient world still survives. And nowhere is it more impressive than Karnak Temple. As you approach Karnak, the scale is difficult to comprehend. Massive stone columns rise before you. Some stand taller than modern buildings, each one covered with carvings created thousands of years ago. Imagine the effort required to build such a place, the planning, the engineering, the labor. Generation after generation has contributed to its construction. For more than 2,000 years, rulers continued expanding the complex. Every pharaoh wanted to leave a mark. Every ruler wanted to be remembered. Walking through Karnak feels different from visiting a modern building. You do not simply observe it, you experience it. The silence, the shadows, the enormous scale. Everything reminds you that this place was created to inspire awe, and it still succeeds. Now imagine standing inside the great hypostyle hall. Hundreds of gigantic columns surround you. Sunlight filters through narrow openings above. The atmosphere feels almost sacred. You look upward and realize how small you are compared to the structure around you. For a moment, it feels as though time has stopped. Thousands of years disappear, and you find yourself connected to people who lived in a completely different age. But Luxor's wonders do not end there, not even close. Because nearby stands another extraordinary monument, Luxor Temple. Unlike Karnak, Luxor Temple feels more intimate, more elegant, more connected to the heart of the ancient city. During the day, it is impressive. At night, it becomes magical. Lights illuminate the ancient stones. Shadows dance across the walls. The columns glow beneath the evening sky. Visitors walk quietly through the temple. Many simply stop and stare, trying to absorb the atmosphere, trying to imagine the ceremonies that once took place here, trying to understand how something so ancient can still feel so powerful. The answer may be simple. Great architecture speaks a universal language, and Luxor Temple speaks beautifully. Yet perhaps the most famous site in Luxor lies across the Nile, a place filled with mystery, a place where kings prepared for eternity, a place known as the Valley of the Kings. Imagine crossing the river at sunrise. The landscape changes. Green fields disappear. Mountains rise from the desert. The environment becomes harsher, drier, more isolated. Ancient Egyptians believed this was the perfect location for royal tombs. Hidden among these barren hills, They created one of history's greatest burial grounds. More than 60 tombs have been discovered here. Each one tells a story. Each one reveals a piece of Egypt's past. The most famous belongs to a young king. A king whose name became known throughout the world. Tutankhamun, King Tut. When archaeologist Howard Carter discovered his tomb in 1922, the world was astonished. Unlike many other tombs, it remained largely intact. Inside were treasures beyond imagination. Golden masks, jewelry, furniture, weapons, artifacts untouched for more than 3,000 years. Newspapers across the world reported the discovery. People became fascinated with ancient Egypt, and that fascination continues today. Imagine entering one of these tombs. The outside appears simple, almost ordinary. But inside, another world awaits. Walls covered with colorful paintings, ancient symbols, stories of gods and kings, scenes designed to guide the pharaoh into the afterlife. Even after thousands of years, many colors remain vibrant. Many details remain visible. It feels as though the artists finished their work only yesterday. The Valley of the Kings reminds us of something remarkable. Ancient Egyptians planned not only for life, but also for eternity. They believed their actions mattered beyond death. They believed memory could survive forever. And in many ways, they were right. Thousands of years later, we still speak their names. We still visit their tombs. We still admire their achievements. As the sun begins to set over Luxor, golden light spreads across the landscape. The temples glow. The river reflects the sky. The desert becomes peaceful. For many travelers, this is the moment they fall in love with Egypt. Not because of a single monument, not because of a famous photograph, but because of a feeling. A feeling that history is not gone. A feeling that the past is still present. A feeling that some places truly are timeless. And from Luxor, our journey continues farther south, toward a city where the Nile becomes even more beautiful. A city of islands, sailboats, and unforgettable sunsets. Our next destination is Aswan. Chapter 7, Aswan. Where Egypt slows down. After the grandeur of Luxor, our journey continues south. The train moves alongside the Nile. Villages appear and disappear. Palm trees sway gently in the wind. The landscape becomes calmer, quieter. And eventually, we arrive in one of Egypt's most beautiful cities, Aswan. If Cairo is the heartbeat of Egypt, and Luxor is the soul of its history, then Aswan is its place of peace. The moment you arrive, you notice the difference. Life moves more slowly here. The air feels cleaner. The atmosphere feels lighter. People seem less rushed. The Nile appears wider and more majestic. Many travelers describe Aswan as one of the most relaxing places in Egypt. And after spending even a single day here, it is easy to understand why. Imagine waking up early in the morning. The sun begins to rise above the river. The water reflects the soft golden light. Small sailboats glide silently across the Nile. Birds fly above the islands. Everything feels calm, balanced, almost perfect. One of the most iconic sights in Aswan is the felucca, traditional wooden sailboats that have traveled the Nile for centuries. Unlike modern boats, feluccas rely entirely on the wind. Their white sails create beautiful shapes against the blue sky. Imagine stepping aboard one. The boat moves slowly through the water. There is no engine noise, no rush, only the sound of the wind filling the sail. For a while, the modern world seems very far away. Aswan is also famous for its islands, small pieces of land scattered across the Nile, covered with palm trees and colorful houses. Each island seems to have its own personality, its own story, its own rhythm of life. Among Aswan's greatest treasures is Philae Temple, dedicated to the goddess Isis, one of the most important figures in ancient Egyptian mythology. Reaching the temple requires a short boat ride. As the boat approaches, the temple slowly rises from the water. Its columns reflect on the river. Its ancient walls glow beneath the sunlight. The scene feels almost dreamlike. For many visitors, Philae is one of the most beautiful temples in Egypt, not because it is the largest, but because of its location. Surrounded by water, separated from the modern world, protected by time. Walking through the temple, you can still see carvings created thousands of years ago, stories of gods, kings, ceremonies, beliefs, messages from another age, and somehow they continue to speak to us. Not through words, but through imagination. Yet Aswan is not only about ancient history, it is also home to one of Egypt's most important cultural communities, the Nubians. For centuries, Nubian people have lived in southern Egypt and northern Sudan. They have their own traditions, their own music, their own architecture, their own way of life. Visiting a Nubian village feels like entering another world. Brightly colored houses line the streets. Walls are decorated with beautiful artwork. Children play outside. Music fills the air. Visitors are often welcomed warmly, invited to drink tea, share stories, experience local culture. The hospitality of the Nubian people is legendary. Many travelers arrive as strangers and leave feeling like friends. Their culture adds another layer to Egypt's incredible diversity, a reminder that Egypt is not one story, but many stories woven together across thousands of years. As evening arrives, Aswan becomes even more beautiful. The sky slowly changes color: orange, pink, purple. The Nile reflects every shade. The sailboats become silhouettes against the sunset. The city grows quiet. People gather along the river, watching the day come to an end. Few places in the world offer sunsets quite like this. And perhaps that is the true magic of Aswan. It teaches you to slow down, to appreciate simple moments, to notice beauty that might otherwise go unseen. In a world that often moves too fast, Aswan reminds us that there is value in stillness. There is value in silence. There is value in simply watching the river flow. But our journey through Egypt is far from over, because beyond the Nile lies another side of the country, a side that many visitors never expect. A side filled with endless sand dunes, hidden oases, and landscapes so extraordinary they seem to belong to another planet. Our next destination takes us deep into the Western Desert, toward one of Egypt's most remarkable hidden treasures, the Oasis of Siwa. Chapter 8. Siwa Oasis, Egypt's Hidden Paradise. When most people imagine Egypt, they picture pyramids, temples, the Nile, perhaps the Red Sea. But very few imagine what awaits deep inside Egypt's western desert, a place so different from the rest of the country that it almost feels like another world. Welcome to Siwa Oasis, one of Egypt's most beautiful secrets. The journey to Siwa is not short. Hours pass as the desert stretches endlessly in every direction. The road seems to lead nowhere. Sand and sky dominate the landscape. You begin to wonder how anyone could live in such an isolated place. And then, suddenly, everything changes. Palm trees appear on the horizon. Green fields emerge from the desert. Water sparkles beneath the sunlight. Life appears where you least expect it. You have arrived in Siwa. For centuries, Siwa remained isolated from much of the world. Its location protected its traditions and culture. As a result, the oasis developed a unique identity, unlike anywhere else in Egypt. The first thing many visitors notice is the silence. Not the silence of an empty room, but the silence of nature, the silence of open space, the silence of a world moving at a slower pace. There are no crowded highways, no towering skyscrapers, no endless traffic. Instead, there are palm groves, olive trees, natural springs, and endless desert landscapes. Imagine waking up in Siwa, The morning air is cool. Birds sing among the palm trees. Sunlight slowly illuminates the oasis. Life begins gently, without urgency, without stress. Many travelers come to Siwa looking for adventure, but they often leave with something different. Peace. One of the most fascinating places in Siwa is the Temple of the Oracle. More than 2,000 years ago, a young conqueror crossed the desert to visit this sacred site. His name was Alexander the Great. At the time, he was already building one of history's largest empires. But he came to Siwa seeking answers. According to ancient stories, the oracle confirmed his destiny. Whether the stories are true or not, they remain one of history's most intriguing legends. Today, visitors can still walk among the ruins, standing where Alexander himself may have stood, imagining the questions he asked, imagining the answers he received. Another remarkable feature of Siwa is its natural springs. Crystal clear water rises from beneath the earth. For thousands of years, these springs have provided life to the oasis. Some are warm, others are cool. Many visitors spend hours relaxing in the water while surrounded by desert scenery. The experience feels almost surreal. Water, life, and greenery. In the middle of one of the largest deserts on Earth. But perhaps Siwa's most famous attraction is its salt lakes. At first glance, they appear almost unreal. The water is unbelievably clear. Bright shades of blue contrast against the white salt formations surrounding the lakes. The scene looks more like a tropical island than a desert oasis. And then comes the most surprising part. You float effortlessly. The salt concentration is so high that your body naturally stays on the surface. No swimming required, no effort needed, just complete relaxation. Many visitors compare the experience to floating in the Dead Sea, and for some, it becomes one of the highlights of their entire trip to Egypt. As the day continues, the desert reveals even more beauty. Golden dunes stretch toward the horizon. The wind creates patterns across the sand. The landscape changes constantly. No 2 days look exactly the same. Adventure seekers often explore these dunes in four-wheel drive vehicles, racing across the desert, climbing steep hills of sand, watching sunsets from remote locations far from civilization. The desert feels alive, not with noise, but with energy, with mystery, with possibility. Then comes evening, and with it, one of Siwa's greatest gifts. The night sky. Far away from city lights, the stars appear brighter than most people have ever seen. Thousands upon thousands of stars fill the darkness. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of light. For a moment, it feels as though the universe itself has opened above you. People sit quietly around campfires, sharing stories, drinking tea, watching the stars. And in moments like these, something interesting happens. You stop thinking about schedules, deadlines, notifications. The noise of everyday life fades away. Only the present moment remains. Perhaps that is why so many travelers fall in love with Siwa, not because of one specific attraction, but because of how the place makes them feel. Free, calm, connected. Connected to nature, connected to history, connected to themselves. Siwa reminds us that some of the world's greatest treasures are not found in cities. They are found in quiet places, hidden places, places where life slows down enough for us to truly appreciate it. But Egypt still has more surprises waiting for us, because beyond the oasis lies a landscape so unusual that many people compare it to the surface of another planet. A place where white rock formations rise from the desert like frozen sculptures. Our next destination is one of the most extraordinary natural wonders in Africa. The White Desert. Chapter 9. The White Desert, a landscape from another world. As we leave Siwa behind, Our journey takes us deeper into Egypt's vast western desert, far away from cities, far away from crowds, far away from everything familiar. The road stretches endlessly across the sand. Hour after hour, the landscape seems unchanged. Until suddenly, something extraordinary appears. At first, it looks impossible. White shapes rising from the desert floor. Huge formations carved by wind and time. Some resemble giant mushrooms. Others look like animals frozen in stone. Some seem almost human. Welcome to the White Desert, one of the most unusual places on Earth. Millions of years ago, this area was covered by an ancient sea. Over time, geological forces transformed the landscape. Wind slowly sculpted the soft limestone into incredible formations. The result is a natural art gallery unlike anything else in the world. Imagine walking through the White Desert. The silence is complete. Every direction reveals another strange shape, another natural sculpture, another masterpiece created by nature itself. The bright white rocks contrast dramatically with the golden sand surrounding them. The scene feels surreal, almost dreamlike. Many visitors say they feel as though they have landed on another planet, and it is easy to understand why. The landscape seems to belong to a science fiction movie rather than reality. But the true magic begins as the sun starts to set. The colors change minute by minute. White stone turns gold. Gold becomes orange. Orange slowly transforms into shades of red and purple. Long shadows stretch across the desert. The entire landscape becomes a living painting. And then comes night. The temperature drops, the sky darkens, and one by one, the stars begin to appear. Soon, the entire sky is filled with light. Thousands of stars, constellations, the Milky Way, visible in incredible detail. Visitors gather around campfires, sharing stories, drinking tea, listening to the silence of the desert. No city lights, no distractions, only nature, only the universe. Moments like these remind us how vast the world truly is and how small we are within it. The White Desert is not just a destination, it is an experience that changes the way many people see nature, and perhaps even themselves. As our final campfire slowly fades into the darkness, our journey through Egypt begins to reach its conclusion. But before we leave, let us take one final look at everything we have discovered together. Ninth, final chapter: Why Egypt Stays with You Forever. Our journey began beside the pyramids, ancient monuments that have survived for thousands of years. We followed the Nile, the river that gave birth to one of humanity's greatest civilizations. We explored Cairo, a city overflowing with life and energy. We walked through the temples of Luxor, where history still whispers through stone walls. We watched the sunset over Aswan, sailed across the Nile, met the people of Nubia. We traveled deep into the desert, discovered hidden oases, floated in crystal clear lakes, and stood beneath some of the most beautiful night skies on Earth. Along the way, we learned something important. Egypt is much more than its monuments, much more than its history, much more than the photographs we see online. Egypt is a feeling that stays with you long after you leave. It is the feeling of standing before the pyramids and realizing how much humanity can achieve. It is the feeling of watching the Nile flow exactly as it has for thousands of years. It is the feeling of hearing stories passed down through generations. It is the feeling of discovering beauty where you least expect it. Egypt teaches us that history is not something locked away in books. History is alive. It surrounds us. It shapes us. And it connects us to the people who came before us. Perhaps that is why Egypt continues to fascinate the world. Because every visitor arrives with questions and leaves with even more. Every monument tells a story. Every city reveals a new perspective. Every journey uncovers another mystery. And no matter how much you explore, there is always more waiting to be discovered. As our adventure comes to an end, take one final look. The pyramids rising from the desert, the Nile reflecting the golden light of sunset, the temples standing proudly against the passage of time, the endless dunes stretching toward the horizon, the stars shining above the silent desert. These are the images of Egypt, ancient, beautiful, timeless. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope you enjoyed exploring Egypt while improving your English. And remember, the world is full of incredible places. Every country has a story. Every city has a soul. And every journey has the power to change the way we see the world. Until our next adventure, keep learning, keep exploring, and never stop being curious. Goodbye.